The rumor spread through the naval base like wildfire, a whisper that traveled from one end of the flight deck to the other, from the hangar bays to the officers' mess. Everyone had heard that Admiral Carter was planning to publicly unmask the mysterious pilot known only as Reaper 1. No one dared speak her real name, not because they didn't know it, but because even saying it felt like a breach of respect. Lieutenant Commander Alexandra Hale had earned her place among the deadliest aviators the U.S. Navy had ever seen. Her call sign, Reaper 1, wasn't given to her, it was earned. But the Admiral didn't see it that way. Admiral John Carter had been in command long enough to think no one could outshine him. He had made a career out of control over people, reputation, and power. And when a woman like Hale began to attract the kind of awe usually reserved for war legends, it cut into his pride like a knife. He wasn't just her superior, he wanted to be the one to prove that he made her. Only problem? Hale didn't owe her eyes to anyone but herself, and every pilot in her squadron knew it. The story of how she got the call sign Reaper 1 was told and retold in hushed tones. Her first mission over Kandahar, when her F/A-18 was hit, both engines dead, bleeding altitude fast. She'd refused to eject. Instead, she coasted on pure instinct and combat skill, guiding the crippled bird like a falling star into position, and still managed to neutralize 2 incoming targets. The enemy had a call sign for her after that night, Al-Maut al-Samdi, the Silent Death. The U.S. Navy shortened it, Reaper 1. The title stuck, and so did the legend. But legends, as Admiral Carter liked to remind his staff, weren't good for hierarchy. It began one humid evening on the USS Vigilant. The carrier hummed with routine A-deck crews moving in synchronized chaos, engines roaring, and the smell of salt and jet fuel thick in the air. Hale stood by her aircraft, a black streak of grease on her cheek, helmet tucked under one arm. Her crew chief, Mason, handed her the pre-flight checklist. "You're cleared for the night run, Reaper," Mason said. Hale nodded, checking the fuel levels. "Copy that." He hesitated. "Word is, the Admiral's coming to the observation deck tonight. He's been asking about you." Hale didn't look up. "He always asks about me when someone else praises me." Mason smirked, half nervous, half proud. "You think he's planning something?" She gave a faint grin. "He's a man who hates shadows, and I'm the one thing he can't see through." Carter arrived just as the jets roared to life. His crisp white uniform contrasted with the night deck's chaos. Behind him trailed 2 aides and a handful of senior officers. They saluted, though he didn't return it properly. He was too focused on Hale's jet. "That's her?" he asked Commander Wilkes. "Yes, sir." "Reaper 1. She leads the Ghost Squadron." "Leads?" Carter scoffed. "She flies, Commander." "Don't mistake charisma for leadership." Wilkes said nothing. He'd served under Hale once. He knew better. As Hale's F/A-18 catapulted off the deck, the jet disappeared into the clouds like a shadow swallowed by the sea. Carter folded his arms. "Tomorrow morning, I'm announcing the next promotion round," he said to no one in particular, "and I intend to make sure our pilots remember the Navy is built on discipline, not myths." That night, his words became orders. The next day, the announcement was made. A live-streamed press conference aboard the carrier, a rare event meant to highlight key contributors to the Navy's latest operations. Hale's name was on the invitation list. It didn't feel like an honor. It felt like bait. When she arrived, she wore her flight suit, not the dress whites Carter had recommended. Her face was unreadable, her blonde hair tied back tight, her demeanor calm but coiled, like a gun waiting to be fired. The press room was crowded. Cameras lined the back wall, and several journalists were already whispering about Reaper 1. Her legend had drawn them here. Admiral Carter took the podium, smiling with the kind of politician's grin that never reached his eyes. "Today," he began, "we celebrate the heroes who've brought honor to this fleet, but we also remind ourselves that heroism is never about one person. It's about teamwork, hierarchy, and respect for command." His gaze flicked to Hale, deliberate. The crowd shifted, sensing the tension. "I've heard much about these a broken bar, Reaper 1, Carter continued, his tone tightening. "A mysterious call sign that's taken on a life of its own. But perhaps the time has come to lift the mask. After all, we are not ghosts. We are sailors." Hale's jaw tightened. Every pilot in the room felt the air change at the way an electrical storm rolls in before the thunder. Carter gestured toward her. "Lieutenant Commander Hale, would you please step forward?" She did act calm, silent, eyes locked on him. Carter smiled for the cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen, the infamous Reaper 1, a fine pilot, no doubt. But perhaps it's time to remind ourselves that call signs are given, not self-made. Isn't that right, Commander?" There was mockery in his voice. Hale didn't flinch. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" Carter chuckled. "By all means." She stepped closer. The cameras zoomed in, journalists whispering. "When I earned my call sign," she said evenly. "It wasn't in a boardroom or during a PR campaign. It was in a combat zone. Over enemy territory. I didn't get Reaper 1 because someone liked the sound of it. I got it because I brought 7 pilots home when everyone else thought we were dead." Her voice didn't rise, but it carried power. Carter's smile faltered slightly. "That may be so, Buta." She cut him off. "You don't earn respect by trying to own someone else's. You earn it by standing beside them when the sky is burning. I didn't see you there that night, sir." A ripple of murmur swept through the room. Carter's jaw twitched. "Watch your tone, Commander." She stared him down. "With all due respect, Admiral, my tone's the same one I used when I called in the coordinates that saved your son's squadron 2 years ago. You remember that, don't you?" The silence that followed was absolute. Carter's son, Lieutenant Mark Carter, had been shot down in hostile airspace during an ambush. Hale had been the one who broke formation to guide the rescue chopper in. It had been classified. No one was supposed to know. But Hale wasn't done. "You told me not to mention it. Said it would complicate things politically. So I kept my mouth shut. I've been keeping a lot of things shut." Carter's face drained of color. "That's classified information." "It was," Hale said, "until you tried to use me as a pawn in your little show." The journalists were writing furiously now, flashes firing like lightning. Carter's composure cracked. "This insubordination will end your career, Commander." Hale's gaze turned cold. "Funny, I was about to say the same thing." She reached into her flight jacket and pulled out a small drive, tossing it onto the podium. "That's every comm log, radar feed, and black box recording from the Kandahar mission. The one you ordered buried because it showed your intelligence error got 3 pilots killed. You pinned the fault on Lieutenant Reyes. He took his own life 3 months later." The crowd froze. Carter's hand trembled on the podium. "You're lying." Hale's eyes didn't waver. "No, sir. I'm just tired of watching you hide behind other people's courage." One of the aides stepped forward, whispering urgently to Carter, but he shoved the man away. "This is absurd. You think the Navy will believe the word of one pilot against an admiral?" A deep voice came from the back. "Try the word of 22. Everyone turned. Commander Wilkes and nearly the entire Ghost Squadron stood in the doorway, still in flight suits, arms crossed, eyes hard. Wilkes tossed a folder onto the press table. "Signed affidavits, witness statements. The truth's not classified anymore." The room erupted in shouts and camera flashes. Reporters surged forward, shouting questions. Carter tried to shout them down, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Hale stood still amid the storm, calm, centered. "Sir," she said quietly, stepping close enough that only he could hear, "you tried to expose my call sign. You wanted to take away what I earned. But Reaper 1 isn't a name, it's a legacy. And you just buried yours." Then she saluted a sharp, final and walked out as security moved in to escort the Admiral away. By the next morning, every major news outlet in the world carried the story. Navy hero exposes Admiral's cover-up. Reaper 1 speaks truth to power. Admiral Carter was placed on immediate leave pending investigation. The footage of the confrontation leaked within hours, likely by one of the Ghost Squadron. Public reaction was swift and brutal. Within a week, his resignation for personal reasons was announced. Behind closed doors, he was stripped of his command permanently. As for Hale, she didn't celebrate. She didn't give interviews or take credit. She simply went back to her hangar, the same way she always did. Mason found her standing by her jet, helmet in hand, looking out over the ocean. "Hell of a thing you did," he said quietly. She shrugged. "Didn't do it for them, did it because someone had to." Mason nodded. "You think they'll try to come after you for it?" Hale smiled faintly. "Let them try." She looked toward the horizon, where the sun was beginning to rise, a blood-orange streak cutting across the waves. "Reaper 1, Mason said softly, shaking his head. "You know they're gonna make a movie about this, right?" She chuckled, a rare sound from her. "If they do, make sure they get the flying right." Then she climbed into the cockpit, engines roaring to life, the deck crew scattering into motion. As her jet lifted from the deck, slicing through the dawn sky, one of the crewmen watching whispered, "There goes the Reaper." No one disagreed, because Reaper 1 wasn't just a call sign anymore. It was a reminder that truth, once airborne, can't be grounded by rank or fear. And somewhere, far below, the Admiral who once tried to expose her sat alone in silence, staring at the headlines that carried her name and realizing too late he had ended her career. She had ended his.